This presentation is based on the research paper Adjustment Quotient of the Elderly for the Social Sciences Conference 2011 by Dr. Bishnupriya Dasgupta, Associate Professor in the Family Resource Management Program at the SNDT Women's University in Mumbai, India, and by Shilpi Malhotra, a student in our program. We apologize for the segmented nature of this presentation, but being a YouTube presentation, it had to be divided at the 10-minute mark. The inspiration for this research came from an article in a magazine written by an elderly 81-year-old well-known writer. She wrote about her decision to shift to an old age home in spite of owning her own home and 3 sons who had no issues about her staying with them. But she wrote, the adjustments were difficult and her own apartment got lonely. She was happy in the old age home and she had company. Also, she had the option of going home whenever she felt like. This triggered the question, are there better alternatives for the elderly than their own home?
Old age was never a problem in India. Old age homes were an alien concept, and elder abuse was considered a Western problem. Not anymore. Neglect of parents is a big issue today. So much so that the Indian government has passed the Maintenance and Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Bill 2006, making it imperative for adult children to look after their parents. This research study was an attempt to find out the living condition in which the elderly can best adjust themselves to the changes in their life, find contentment, and enjoy their golden years.
The point at which old age begins cannot be specified. In understanding old age, 2 factors appear to be mutually distinct but nevertheless interdependent. They are physical and social aging. Aging is a natural and irreversible process which, if mishandled, creates a climate where not only the elders but those around them adopt attitudes which marginalize the elderly.
Physical aging is associated with changes in physiological conditions such as change in the color of hair, weak eyesight, loss of teeth, inability to attend to personal needs, physical ailments, etc. Psychological aging is symbolized by depression, inability to cope with stressful situations, dependence on others, and low confidence levels, among many other symptoms. Social aging is administratively determined for Social Security, retirement, demographic classification, and its consequences on the individual and community.
A word of caution. Acceptance among the elderly and those around them needs to be put in proper perspective. An old person's quiet withdrawal and lack of complaint is often mistaken as philosophical acceptance, when in fact the best possible face is put up on a bitterly disappointing, humiliating, or frightening situation. To assume that old people are somehow happy about being unhappy obstructs our view of the person's true state of mind. Signs of distress deserve attention. Better adjustment among the elderly owe much to their engagement and strategy of adjustment. Participation in leisure and recreational activities, religiosity, and work contribute to better adjustment.
Each society and every community must strive to improve the adjustment factor of the elderly, for today's aged were the children of yesterday, and tomorrow's aged are the youth of today.
Poor adjustment manifests with the elderly because too many changes occur simultaneously. There is a decline in the functional capacity of the organs of the body, fatigue creeps in, and the ability to cope with stress of diseases or trauma decreases.
India's single most stunning achievement in the last century is increase in life expectancy. While it took France 120 years to double its aging population, it took India just 25 years. India now has the second largest aged population in the world. A quick survey of the city of Mumbai indicated that the elderly had 3 options. The first
was living in their own homes with their children. The second was to live in an old age home. And there was a third alternative, available to only a few, to visit a daycare center and spend the day constructively and be home at night.
Today's elderly grew up in an age when mutual aid was the primary source of assistance. Family, friends, neighbors came to each other's rescue with whatever resources they had. To them, turning to the bureaucratic establishments may seem peculiar, even an admission of defeat and rejection. On the other hand, the younger generation has had many decades to interact with the establishment or the system, so they will be more prepared for this form of help in their old age. The present generation of elders seem to be in a transition period, and the study was an attempt to find out the satisfaction level of elders from these establishments.
This study was conducted in Mumbai, one of the largest metropolitan cities in India. Elderly living with their families in their own homes were identified through known sources and using the snowballing technique. A booklet, which served as a database on old age homes in the state of Maharashtra, was obtained, and those within the city of Mumbai were identified, and inmates who were willing to be a part of the study were selected. The entry into old age homes was difficult, as the superintendents were not willing to let any outsiders, even as researchers, interact with the elderly with probing questions, as they felt it might disturb the elderly inmates. Daycare centers, which were very few in number, were identified, and visiting elderly selected on the basis of their willingness to participate in the study were invited.
The adjustment inventory measured the patterns and problems of adjustment faced by the elderly regarding home, health, emotional, financial, and marital issues. The overall satisfaction from life was also measured by administering the Life Satisfaction Index, which consisted of 18 items.
Health is the greatest resource that determines adjustment to aging. The findings of this study indicate that issues like ill health, anxiety, loneliness, and insecurity were common among the elderly, no matter where they lived. But the guilty feeling of inconveniencing others was lesser amongst female inmates in old age homes and among those elderly who visited daycare centers.
The findings also indicated that passing time was a problem among the elderly only amongst those who lived in their own homes. This was mainly because they did not participate in the day-to-day activities of the household and did not have leisure activities to pursue, while they did have some company and activity in the old age home and daycare centers. This loneliness and lack of activities seems to be the foundation for suicidal tendencies amongst the elderly living in their own homes.
Housing is one of the most important aspects of a person's life and a major indicator of quality of life. Studies show that participation in leisure and recreational activities contribute to better adjustment amongst the elderly. This slide indicates that the elderly in their own homes did not enjoy entertainment facilities, which were available in old age homes and the daycare centers. Also, their suggestions were not welcome. Only the elderly visiting the daycare centers could give suggestions and opinions to their family members. Elders in all situations kept their problems to themselves.
Nuclear families, migration of the young, and workforce participation of women cause a crisis in caring for the elderly in their own homes as they become dependent. They are thought of as a burden forced upon the family. It is only when they fall sick that the family members give them attention, and many of the elderly felt that the family looked after them because they contributed or shared the expenses.
The elderly in India have traditionally enjoyed a high status and more respect than the younger generation because it is believed that by virtue of having passed through years of varied and rich life experiences, they gain knowledge and achieve sufficient wisdom and command respect. This was found to be still prevalent. The elderly in their own homes were not occupied with any specific activity, and the females were not happy when visitors came because their movements were further curtailed.